Hey, what's up guys? Pastor Ryan here, and I'm really excited to jump into a conversation with you today on the subject of salvation. We're actually calling this the 5 steps to salvation, which I'm just gonna go ahead and say I'm not too crazy about that title because it sounds a little bit like a cookie recipe or something like that. And obviously this is so much more than baking cookies. We're talking about salvation here. And so before jumping into it, I do just wanna throw one big disclaimer at you, and that is this. You're gonna notice as we jump into these 5 things that it would be easy for me to sort of cherry pick a passage here, or cherry pick a passage here, or cherry pick a passage here. And there's some denominations or churches that will do that. They'll say, well, this passage says all I have to do is hear about Jesus and I can be saved. Or this passage says I just have to believe. Or this passage says I just have to confess with my mouth and I'll be saved. And I always start out this conversation here because at FCC, we try to look at the entirety of Scripture. We try to look at all the different passages that talk about salvation, and it just doesn't seem safe to cherry pick one here or there. Rather, I think it works a little better to say, no, these bleed into each other. These sort of weave into each other. They're all important and should all be considered. Thus, we have 5 steps. And so, with that said, let's jump in. So let's start here. Scripture tells us that the first thing you have to do if you want to enter into a relationship with Jesus is you have to hear about Jesus. Now, I know that sounds pretty elementary. Like, of course, I have to hear about Jesus if I'm going to be a Christian. But Scripture does actually have something to say about this. It says this in Romans 10. It says, how then can they call on the one they have not believed in? And how can they hear without someone preaching to them? Consequently, faith comes from hearing the message, and the message is heard through the work of Christ. In Revelation, it says this, blessed is the one who reads of this prophecy, and blessed are those who hear it and take to heart what is written in it, because the time is near. So I actually think what this concept does of hearing is, yes, it's important for us. If we're entering into a relationship with Jesus, we have to hear about him, but it also puts the emphasis on those of us who already believe that we actually have to communicate to our friends, to our loved ones about Jesus. This is a pretty important first step.